As we head into the bottom of the hour break, tell us about Stan White before we get to him coming up.
All right. Stan lost a son in Iraq in combat, and then another son returned home and died in his sleep from the medications that he had been given. So he lost two of his military sons.
And what were the medications that his other son, seemingly healthy, all right, coming back from a young man, coming back from Iraq, but dies in his sleep, what kind of medications had his other son been on?
Paxil and Seroquel were the main ones. There was one other one. We'll have to ask Stan. I don't remember tonight.
Okay. And we'll get to that coming up in just a minute, as Stan White will then tell us about his attempts to go across the country and find other people that have also known somebody who just, am I getting this right, Dr. Ann Blake Tracy, just dropped dead?
Yes.
Who had been given all the meds they needed to continue to fight in Iraq, only to come home and just die. Right.
Just like Anna Nicole Smith's son, Daniel, on the same combination of medications that causes serotonin syndrome, where you have all the major organs shut down. You die of multiple organ failure. There's a question as to whether it's multiple organ or whether it's heart failure. They're just, but with Stan's son, they did say that there was an interaction of the medications.
Well, then that's just where we'll leave it for the moment. But here's where we'll put Dr. Ann Blake Tracy on hold for a moment, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Stan White then, the father who's on a crusade to find other soldiers who have just spontaneously died from the medications that they were being given in Iraq, who just came home ready to start their life over again and then died. It's a small thing we could do for them on Memorial Day to talk about it and to find out whether you know anybody who would qualify too, and how you can get in touch with Stan White or Dr. Ann Blake Tracy coming up next. We're going to get to Stan White coming up, the man who tragically lost two sons to Iraq. He's on a quest to find people who have just spontaneously died from the drugs that they were being given while in service to this country, who came back here and just died. And he's trying to find as many of them as he can to build his case and to raise awareness. We'll get to Stan White coming up in just a second. So for the purposes of the next half hour, those phone numbers we just gave you, that's really for people who know somebody who has been affected by this, who knows somebody who has just died from the drugs they were given in Iraq. So if you know somebody and you want to talk with Stan White, we'll get to you coming up in just a second, and we can help him out. Well, we've already gotten a couple of people, and we'll get to them coming up in just a minute, who know of somebody who has been in the same situation that Stan White is, who joins us now live on Coast to Coast AM with Dr. Ann Blake Tracy, who runs the website drugawareness.org, who's 100% against the SSRIs, the antidepressants that so many people are taking. And she's warning that Captain Joyce Riley is now saying 90% of those returning from the Iraq War are on some kind of antidepressants, which is setting up for perhaps a huge problem down the road. Some of that problem might be what Stan White has experienced. And good evening, Stan White. I'm so sorry about your loss.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, and in this case, both losses. You lose a son actually in battle in Iraq. Is that right?
Yes, in September 26, 2005, my older son, Staff Sergeant Robert White, was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade in Afghanistan. And my younger son, Corporal Andrew White, U.S. Marines, had just been home less than a week when we received news that his brother had been killed. then February 12th of 2008, Andrew died in his sleep while taking medication for PTSD.
So for post-traumatic stress disorder, your son was suffering from that. You probably felt so relieved to have your other son home and not in combat, and then for him to die so young like this anyway, I don't blame you for trying to make sense of it and trying to figure out, how did this happen? So how did it happen?
We don't know. He was taking Klonopin, Paxil, and Seroquel, and also some painkillers for some injuries that he'd had. He'd been in a car accident and a couple of things, so he had been taking this medication and not getting better, so the physicians from the VA increased his medication, especially his Seroquel, and he started gaining weight, extreme weight gain, couldn't sleep, had nightmares, had tremors, and we didn't do any research on the medication. We thought that the psychiatrists and physicians that were treating him, we'd always believed.
Trusted them, sure.
Right, and even today, I believe those physicians and doctors were probably doing what they thought was best. But found out later medications need to be researched, and I truly believe that there needs to be less medication.
And the more you started looking into this, you started hearing from other people who said, I know somebody who just came back from Iraq and spontaneously died as well?
Yes, we found within from end of January 2008 until May of 2008, 4 soldiers and Marines in the Charleston area died in their sleep. And then we found another one that had died a couple of years before that. And then since then, friends of ours that we have met through our network researched, and we found at least 19 that have died in their sleep, and as many as up to about 70 that are being investigated. They just died. We don't know how they died, whether it was with medication, whether they committed suicide, or...
But you're hearing about them. So maybe as many, it could be 70 to 100, and you're just beginning to look into this, of soldiers who just spontaneously died. And would seem to be from the accumulative effect of all of the drugs, well-intended, no doubt, and properly prescribed, probably, right? I mean, it's not like they know, it wasn't like after they did the autopsy that they said, oh, well, here is the problem. You mixed such and such with such and such, and that'll kill you every time?
The autopsy report showed that there was an intoxication of antidepressants, antipsychotics, and some of them had painkillers.
Yeah.
The medications, some of them were different, but they were all in those classes of drugs, particularly antidepressants and antipsychotics.
Again, I'm so sorry for what has happened to you, and thank you for stepping up and trying to find other soldiers for, that this has happened to, and try to prevent this from happening with other people. So how has the Army reacted to your investigation, your linking of these cases together of soldiers who were under the Army's care who just spontaneously died?
I really haven't had any information from the Army.
Okay.
Or the VA. Most of the contacts have been through families. I have contacted the wife of one commander of an Army base who lost 2 sons also, and we have exchanged emails and phone calls, but nothing officially from any agency in the government. We have been working very closely with our local congresswoman, Study Moore Capito, who's been very helpful in us getting
Okay.
information. For Jay Rockefeller from West Virginia, his office has been very helpful.
So have you set up a number or a website that people can go to if they know somebody who came back and from the medications that they were being prescribed by the Army or by whomever, whatever branch of the military, just died?
Yes, if they would email me at, this is all small case letters, HSWhite2346 @yahoo.com.